the critics and your fear. There's no easy way to hear. And all the memories you love to bring, with all the things that you hate to scream. So tell me, hollow on the inside, there's no trying to hide from this monster inside me. So if you try to criticize me like the world defines me, image of what I have become.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to an interesting episode of the Browns Beat Podcast. Tristan, we've been doing this for, as crazy as it sounds, we've been doing this for a few years now. I believe this is the first head coaching search that we have been doing this for. So today we are going to be talking a lot about the head coaching search. There's a lot of names kind of getting narrowed down. The Cleveland Browns are in an interesting predicament. The NFL draft is obviously going to be a huge thing for this team this offseason. And Dante Moore just gave the middle finger to the New York Jets. So that's going to throw some things off. We're going to talk about that. But first, well, I should say the first topic of the day before we get into it. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know how else to say it. There's only a handful of times that you will get to see something like this, and that is the Pittsburgh Steelers having a new head coach. And as crazy as that is, Tristan, we didn't get to talk about it the last time, the Baltimore Ravens will also have a new head coach. So in grand total, the last remaining head coach of the AFC North somehow is Zach Taylor. Absolutely baffling. But before we get into all that, again, if I have not already, my name is Derek. Who might you be, sir?
I'm your boy Tristan. Wow,
This is my wise man Tristan right here. He keeps us in line.
Yeah, Derek, it's crazy. It's crazy. Weirdly enough, I was feeling like it was like the Tomlin conversation. It felt like it came to a boil, and it felt like this was gonna burst, right? And I felt like it was gonna happen. But even then, even when you feel like it's gonna happen, when it actually happens, like it's still just so shocking.
Yeah.
I mean, Derek, he's been the Steelers head coach almost longer than I've been alive. like this is insane. I mean, just an incredible career in Pittsburgh. Obviously, we hate that, but at the same time, we can respect it. I've been no stranger talking about how I feel like Mike Tomlin is a really good coach. He's very underrated, and his work in Pittsburgh, towards the end, it definitely got a bit hostile. But at the same time, I don't necessarily think that was because Mike Tomlin was a bad coach. It was because of a lot of the other things happening around him, such as not having a quarterback, not having a good offensive coordinator, those types of things. But he still found ways to have a winning football team. And that's such an impressive feat. And, I was incredibly shocked when that news, when I saw that news, Derek.
Yeah, Tomlin, I mean, we'll talk about Harbaugh more a little bit later because he was a guy that kind of was a candidate for a split second, I guess, for us. But when it comes to Mike Tomlin, man, just the track record, the respect, just everything that comes with him, he's undeniable. I think that is, to me, in the world of sports, how you set yourself apart is be undeniable, whether if it be as a player, as a coach, as a general manager, and that's an easy thing to say. But what I mean is he set a standard that whoever the next Pittsburgh Steelers head coach is going to be, I mean, it's borderline impossible. But here's the thing, Tristan, and my perspective on this, because, I've kind of been, as a Browns fan, obviously it's a little bit different, but I have a lot of people in my life who are Steelers fans. And the one thing I hear from them is kind of this general overall confidence because of who they have as their head coach. And it's warranted. The whole argument when it comes to Mike Tomlin, if you're a fan of the Pittsburgh Steelers, it's like, at what point do you draw the line? I guess that is my question in this whole thing. If you are a Steelers fan or you're an NFL fan and you're hearing us talk about this, at what point would you draw the line? Because, Tristan, the regular season is fun. It's great. But at the end of the day, it does not matter. It doesn't. You said it on the last podcast we did. The end goal, ultimately, no matter what, if you're the New York Jets, if you're the Cleveland Browns, if you're the Tennessee Titans, if you're the Oakland or Las Vegas Raiders, the goal is always win a Super Bowl. That is always the goal. So it's real cute that, you don't have a losing record and you make the playoffs every year, but you've lost 9 consecutive in the first round. And, Tristan, that's the point that I'm getting to. It's 9 now. Is it going to be 10? Is it going to be 11? Is it going to be 12? At what point do you go ahead and say, okay, this ain't working anymore? And, for me, Tristan, it's easy to say as a fan of an organization that quite literally always has top draft picks if we don't trade them for failure quarterbacks. But I think the Steelers, Tristan, I think they need to take a year and suck. I say that respectfully, but I think this Pittsburgh Steelers need to take a year and suck. And I don't say that, as a Browns fan to be disrespectful, but one of the things that Mike Tomlin said, he was talking to Chase Young. He's like, I'll never be able to draft a guy like you. And, we could say Chase Young didn't work in the NFL, or at least not what we thought. But the Pittsburgh Steelers have been on retread quarterbacks since Ben left. And even when Big Ben was there his last couple years, he was horrible. He was terrible. So this past year, there was that kind of retread hype with Aaron Rodgers, and it was a cute little story for a while. But at the end of the day, Tristan, they have to find their future. They have to find their future. The Browns have to find their future. A lot of teams do. But Tristan, I look at a team like the Denver Broncos, who, after Peyton Manning left, went through that cycle of shit. And then they make the trade for Russell Wilson. Obviously, we know that fails. But guess what? They get the coach they like. They go out and they get the quarterback that they like. I thought Bo Nix was going to be dog shit. I did not like Bo Nix at all. But he's balling. So if you're Pittsburgh, it's great. Mike Tomlin build a statue, right? I know he got 1 Super Bowl, but when I look back on Steelers coaches, Tristan, in our lifetime, he is the best. I mean, he quite literally has been there most of our life. But were you going to say something?
Oh, I was just going to say, yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy. It is. But at the end of the day, the only way you're going to succeed in the NFL is if you have a quarterback. And I'm an Ohio State fan, clearly. If anybody doesn't know me, I am. I like Will Howard. I don't love Will Howard. I don't think he's the future of Pittsburgh. I don't think he's, some big star in the making here. But, again, you have to be able to land certain positions. And the only way they're going to be able to do that, Tristan, in my opinion, is if they really embrace a new era. Because even in the old, with Tomlin, guess what? They had the 20-something pick last year. They could have took a Jackson Dart. They could have took a guy like a Tyler Shuck, who nobody thought was going to be good, but he's all right now. So, again, I guess, Christian, my question to you in return, and my question to anybody watching this would be, if you're a fan of the Pittsburgh Steelers, at what point? At what point is a winning season every year, losing in the first round, at what point do you just give up on that and try over again? And they decided this year Mutually, I guess both ways it was best. But if you're against this, when is the line? Would be my question.
Yeah. So the interesting thing is that this was Tomlin stepping down, and I do wonder, like, would Rooney have given him another year? Would Pittsburgh, their front office, would they have given him another year? And part of me kind of wants to say yes. I think they would have, because he's been there for 19 seasons. Like, they probably would want to get him to 20, right? But at the same time, it was the right decision. And Tomlin even said it himself that he felt like it was time for the organization to move on, him and the organization to part ways, because he didn't feel like he was the best man to lead the team moving forward. And ultimately, Derek, like, it's so hard with Tomlin, because it's like, I like him a lot as a coach. And I think that if he decides to get back into coaching and he decides to take up another team in the NFL, assuming that team has a good quarterback in place, he can lead a team deep into the playoffs or potentially even win another Super Bowl. I really think that highly of him, and his teams. So like, that's where this is tough, because with Kevin Stefanski, it was, do I think he's capable of winning a Super Bowl with the Cleveland Browns? And the answer was no. And it was a pretty sure no. With Mike Tomlin, he's won a Super Bowl in Pittsburgh. He's been an amazing head coach, like we talked about. He hasn't had any losing seasons. So well decorated. It's clear he is among the class of the league when it comes to coaches. But it got to a point, Derek, where even though he was fantastic, the Pittsburgh Steelers were never going to win another Super Bowl as long as if Mike Tomlin was there, because his teams wouldn't be bad enough for them to be able to get the quarterback that they need, to get the talent that they need for a legitimate rebuild. And say what you will about signing guys, trading for guys, the NFL draft is where you get your superstars. You do not get those guys available in free agency. Almost never. I mean, like, Tyler Linderbaum is about to be a free agent this year, and I would consider him a superstar, but even then, it's not like a guy that, that's a championship like type of swing type of guy. I mean, Lamar Jackson, he was an exclusive rights free agent the year after Deshaun, or a restricted free agent, excuse me. So like, he was kind of available, but not really. So like, this is just so rare, and it's so rare to find talent like that, and that's the talent that Pittsburgh needs to get to become a contender again. And it's just not going to be possible with Mike. So I think that this was the right decision, even though I think that they are going to get worse as a team and they're going to be in a worse spot. It gets them an opportunity to build and go further than where they would be going in the future.
Yeah, 100%. And it's one of those things where nobody wants to do it. I mean, if you're asking anybody, ask us. We've had more terrible, miserable seasons than I think anybody could. Us or the New York Jets, one of the two. Listen, we wouldn't have Myles Garrett if we didn't go 0-16. You don't get those guys. You just don't. And you can get lucky. I guess not even luck, but like, you could have a good scouting department and find talent late, but I don't care how good your scouting department is. You can't find a Puka Nacua every year. You can't find a Dak Prescott every year. For our sake, we hope Shedeur Sanders is that guy, but you just can't get those guys like consistently. It's just not possible.
Well, and not only that, but Derek, it makes the misses hurt even worse.
Yes.
Like they traded up for Devin Bush, and everybody who watched his tape in college I'd say pretty much everybody. I don't remember where you were with him, but pretty much everybody thought he was going to come into the NFL and be an elite linebacker day one, and it didn't quite work. He's doing great in Cleveland now, which is awesome, but like it makes those swings that you take hit and hurt even worse.
Yeah, 100%. And a perfect example of that would be the Baltimore Ravens. I mean, we talk about, Mike Tomlin. And Mike Tomlin, I think, is, if you want to consider him available, he's the best available, but I don't consider him to be available. I don't know what his future holds. I would have to imagine that he's probably going to take a crazy TV deal for a year or two, and then eventually he's going to get traded for, and he's going to go be the head coach of some team, and they're going to have a real bright future, and he's going to be the one to lead them to it all, right? That's what I think is probably going to happen. But, Tristan, looking at Baltimore, right, the misses, how many times have the Ravens took some shots, right, on some offensive guys, and they just haven't really been able to surround them? I don't want to say they haven't been able, but they've tried a lot of different things to surround Lamar, and a lot of things have not worked. And looking at a guy like a John Harbaugh, right, a guy who's won a Super Bowl, he's been there forever, he's won a bunch of games. Kind of a similar situation there, Tristan, but I would argue it's a little bit different. With John Harbaugh, I don't think I would have fired him personally, but when you listen to the Baltimore Ravens owner, I think it's Steve Bisciotti, I think is how you say his name. First of all, that dude's electric. That dude is awesome. We shit on Jimmy Haslam all the time for good reason. But if Jimmy Haslam would provide us with some press conferences like Bisciotti did the other day, oh my gosh. But they asked him, they said, had Tyler Loop made that kick, is John Harbaugh still your head coach? Yeah, for one more week. That's an owner that made up his mind. And, you get to that point not over brash decisions. You get to that point over track record and year after year. And if you're a team like the Ravens, you think you have a chance. And I don't know how you feel, Tristan. I think the Baltimore Ravens and the Atlanta Falcons are by far the two best jobs the head coach can take.
Baltimore's number one, and for me, it's not even close.
Yeah.
It's not even close. Like, Atlanta's a good job. Baltimore is a fantastic job, and there's one reason, and it's Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. And ultimately, that's why they decided to make this move.
Yeah.
Because they had Lamar Jackson, which is really interesting, right? I know we're talking about our division rivals here, but it's very fascinating to me that two long-term head coaches, two head coaches that I think have just unbelievable respect across the NFL, and ultimately they are relieved of their duties for the same reason on two opposite sides of the coin. Yet John Harbaugh, who had his quarterback, or a quarterback, I should say, one of the best in the NFL, depending on who you ask. Some people would say the best. I'd say top 5 for sure. And ultimately they fell short. And then, with Tomlin, you don't have the quarterback. And it's like you feel like you haven't been able to get over that hump. So, Tristan, it's just really interesting. It's really interesting what's going on in the AFC North. And the fact that Zach Taylor has a job is beyond me. Because, Tristan, here's the thing. I don't know if the Bengals leadership team, ownership group, I don't know if they understand this. They fire Zach Taylor today. I think that's the most attractive job, bar none. I think that jumps the Ravens. To work with Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, like...
The defense is a mess, but at the same time, what the league showed us this year is that there are a lot of good defensive play callers, and I think that they could have went out and got... I look at I look at Cincy, and I think that if they had an elite defensive head coach like Brian Flores, for example, who no matter what talent you get him, he's going to have a team that's going to have a defense in the top 10. The pure talent that you have on offense is going to get you into the top 15, top 10 offenses. So for me, that would have been a slam dunk hire. It would have been a slam dunk hire. And now you're going into next year and you're saying, Joe, just be healthy and be yourself. Brian, do your thing. We're in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they didn't do it. I don't get it. I don't get it. The worst head coach in the AFC North kept his job, and all the other ones lost theirs. It's incredible.
It is. It is, and I think the big thing for me, and we're about to talk about the Browns. I know everybody's probably saying, 20 minutes in, you haven't said a word about the Browns. I don't want to.
Delaying pain, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But I guess the thing that I would say as far as like that is like what you're looking at when you're taking an interview for a head coaching job. There's some guys who get interviewed, and then there's some guys that they are interviewing, right? Like John Harbaugh was interviewing teams to see which one would be the best fit for him, right? The Browns are interviewing coaches to see who's the best fit for them. Nobody is saying, well, I'm going to decide to see if I think the Browns are going to be, the perfect set of keys for me to, drive this car. Like, nobody's saying that. John Harbaugh is saying that. With the Bengals job, if it were to have been open, I think there's a lot of coaches that would have willingly threw their hands up and said, yep, I'll go work in an offense where I have Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Joe Burrow. The offensive line is shoddy, but it's better than what it was. The run game is shoddy, but it's better than what it was. It's baffling, to say the least. But, as far as kind of wrapping up with the AFC North here, coaches, it's going to look so different. It is going to look so different next year between the Ravens job and what they decide to do with Lamar and how they decide to handle that. Pittsburgh is a fascinating one because they, we've done this song and dance every year of, the Steelers are going to win 9 games. Now what? What's your season prediction for the Pittsburgh Steelers next year? And then you look at us, and it's like, we are one of the biggest wild cards, Tristan, I think, in the NFL in this coaching search. One of the best defenses in the NFL, arguably the best outside of the Texans. I would say probably even better than the Texans someday on a good day. A lot of young talent. You're going into a new stadium soon. Like, there's some things to be looked at there. But Jimmy Haslam. So,
yeah.
Man, what an offseason we are gearing up for, already starting.
Yeah. Well, and I'll say one thing just about John Harbaugh real quick and him being fired. As that happened, obviously it was a bit of a shocker, but I do think for Baltimore it was the right move just because you've got Lamar in the prime of his career, and Lamar's coming up on 30 years old. And for a mobile quarterback, you don't know how many more years he's got. So for me, he's absolutely got to have some change to try and propel them into a true contending spot. I think that if the Ravens get that hire right, they can easily be the class of the AFC. Because right now it's really wide open. I am a fan of Sean Payton. I'm a fan of the team in Denver. I'm still not fully convinced on Bo Nix. He's had a good year. I will absolutely give him credit there. I'm not sold. I'm not sold. I want to wait. I want to wait and see. I want to see if he can be consistent. But I think that Baltimore, if they get this hire right and they can get a good off season together, that's a team that absolutely could end up winning the AFC next year and possibly even the Super Bowl, because they've got the talent at quarterback. They've got the talent on the team. I think it's there. We'll see how it ends up, but I think really highly of that position. But ultimately, part of the reason why Harbaugh was fired, and one of the things that and I actually heard this first. Quincy Carrier talked about it. John Harbaugh holds on to players and coaches for way too long. Derek, Lamar Jackson, he has had 2 coordinators his entire time in Baltimore, and it was Greg Roman and it was Todd Monken, and both of them didn't really have successful offenses with him. They could not get a receiving game put together. Daniel Falele is one of, if not the worst, offensive linemen in the league, yet he started a lot. And ultimately with Harbaugh, you were going to get stability. You were going to get, you knew what you were getting, which was consistently good. But with Lamar Jackson, you need somebody who's capable of being great. You need somebody who's capable of elevating him and elevating the team around him to a level that's good enough to win a Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that Harbaugh is at that level anymore. Weirdly enough, I think if Mike Tomlin was the head coach of the Ravens, they would be in a much better spot, my opinion. But
yeah,
I think it was the right decision. And when we first, Derek, and this is where I'll pivot us into the Browns, when we first talked about John Harbaugh, when we first heard about John Harbaugh, the first thing we said was absolutely, let's look at bringing him in, being a head coach. As the week kind of went on, this was even before he had ruled us out, I kind of faded on that. I think it would have been the wrong call to hire John Harbaugh for the Browns. And the reason is this. If we look at the teams that of recent years that have been the most successful, it's been teams with a quarterback and a genius offensive mind, a head coach, and able to get the absolute most out of that. Defensive coaches, they do come a dime a dozen. Really, really good ones are a little harder to find, but you can get good defensive coaches for not that much. And they're much more available than a good offensive coordinator or a great offensive mind as a head coach. And for me, I think that hiring John Harbaugh wouldn't be making much of a difference. It would be a different situation for us if we had a lot of chaos and we needed somebody to come in and take us from a perpetual 2-3 win team to a 7 to 10 win team, because he's going to be that. He's going to be a 7 to 10 win team kind of coach. So I think we're in a spot now where we need to take bigger swings for a guy who we think can win us a Super Bowl, and I'm not there with Harbaugh.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, here's the deal. I don't want to say that it's revisionist history, but I think there's a lot of fans who kind of came to that, towards the end, just strictly because he wasn't going to pick us. And I'm not saying that is you, but I'm saying there's a lot of people that I feel like that is where they come to that conclusion. For me, if he would have wanted to come here, absolutely. Sign me up. I would have done it. As far as kind of wrapping up with Baltimore, I think part of the reason why they came to this conclusion is because look at Seattle. They just had him in the building. And here we are, and the Seattle Seahawks look like they're back. And it's, the fact that they had Mike McDonald in the building, and now he is a head coach in the playoffs looking to go on a run, and they very well could. That's a tough look if you are a part of the ownership there. Moving on to the Cleveland Browns, unfortunately, we have to talk about this. Tristan, you kind of mentioned it with John Harbaugh. We got to the point where it wasn't realistic, and it was a fun little pipe dream while it lasted, but in all reality, was probably not going to happen. So before I send it over to you, I just diving into this conversation here. I want people who hear this to understand whoever the Browns hire, there's going to be a large portion of people who don't like the hire, because everybody that is left for the Cleveland Browns to hire is young blood, new up and comers, or guys who, if you want to consider like Jim Schwartz to be a retread, they haven't interviewed him, but like a guy like a Mike McCarthy type, right? We're not seeing a lot of those. We're seeing the young up-and-comer, new guys, risky, is what it's looking like. And part of the reason is, it's all you can do to convince somebody to come here. Like, let's be real at this point. So Tristan, we have not really discussed this, me and you. So I like I told you before, I'm very interested to see where we both lie on this. But with that being said, the Cleveland Browns have conducted a ton of interviews. I'm not going to go over every single name, but they have done a ton of interviews, which don't confuse that with, deep and real thoughtful consideration. Take that as throwing shit at the wall and seeing what sticks is really kind of what I get from that. But with that being said, Tristan, just kind of open-ended here. What are you thinking about how this coaching search has gone? Do you have some names that you've kind of landed on? Where are you feeling where we're at right now?
Yeah, so I kind of hinted at it in what I was talking about before. In the modern NFL, the best teams are the teams that have that quarterback and have an offensive mind, a really brilliant offensive mind. And of course, it's a team, so you can't just have those two things. You got to have other things around it. That's what we're seeing with the Kansas City Chiefs this year. But those are the two biggest, hardest things that you can get in the sport easily. And if you can get both of them, all the other stuff is a lot easier to get, and you can build yourself a contender a lot easier. So for me, when I'm looking at the guys that are getting interviews with us, I am looking at the young guys. That's where I'm kind of going to, and kind of the first name is Grant Udinski, the Jaguars offensive coordinator. He has not been there long, and this is absolutely a ginormous risk. But at the same time, Derek, I think that it's almost worth it. I wouldn't even just say worth it. I think it's almost a slam dunk, because if he ends up being what people think he can be, which people have a high praise for him. There's some people who think he's potentially the next Sean McVay. If he ends up hitting that, then fantastic. You got your head coach for the next 20 plus years. And I mean, even then he'll only be 50, right? So like he could end up spending more than half of his life in Cleveland if it's really a home run, which would be fantastic. If it ends up being the huge risk that it is, and it ends up failing catastrophically, Derek, you know what that tells me? That tells me we get the first overall pick. And next year's draft, having the first overall pick is not a bad thing, because man, oh man, is that quarterback class going to be loaded. So for me, I almost don't see risk. I As weird as that sounds, I don't see risk. Um, I would go for one of these young guys that could potentially be the young offensive mind that we need here in Cleveland. Um, Grant Udinski's probably my number one. I can't say his name for the life of me, but I think his name's Nate Shilassi. He's the Rams pass game coordinator. Like, take a swing. Why not? Like, if you might end up falling flat on your face, and it might end up being a terrible situation, terrible decision. But I think that we're kind of at the point now where I want to take a swing like that, because if we really hit with it, then next year we'll actually know very, very early on if Shedeur is going to end up being our franchise guy. And we'll be able to tell if we end up needing to invest big time in a quarterback in the following year draft. Also, if it's miserable, right, and we end up having that coming to that conclusion, again, we're going to be picking high. So that's where I'm at. That's where I'm at, Derek. I don't think it makes sense to try to go out and hire coaches that are older, that haven't accomplished, that had an opportunity and didn't get it done. I love Jim Schwartz, and I would back him if he got the head coaching job here. But at the same time, we can have him here as our defensive coordinator. And like, we don't have to move off from that. So that's the first bit. But also, I don't think that elevating Jim Schwartz to that role gives you anything different than what you just had this past year. I don't think that it adds anything to the team. Just as bad as that take might be. And I think that there's a lot of people who they want a coach that gives them the impression that he's going to be yelling at the players, holding them accountable, and, being this rah-rah guy. But in reality, if you look around the NFL, that's not what's winning and succeeding right now. It's guys who are the smartest at what they do, the tactically the best. Now, they can't only have that. They have to be able to do the other stuff. But their number one trait is, in terms of their minds, they are the best minds in the game.
Yeah, and I think, kind of picking up where you left off there, I want to address that because I've heard that before, and I'm so glad you said it. But I think there's a massive, massive misconception between leadership and yelling. That doesn't mean the two. The two are not in the same at all. Some of the best leaders are the ones that are the most quiet. And I hate to use this example because it's a player, but look no further than Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb was the best leader that this team had, and he said nothing. You know why? Because everybody saw the work he was putting in. Everybody saw what he would go out there on the field and do. He didn't need to talk, right? So when we're having these conversations and, picking up where you left off there, the Browns need a leader. The Cleveland Browns need a leader of men. Kevin Stefanski, God bless him, but nobody believed, or at least I didn't believe, that Kevin Stefanski had the balls to stand up to Andrew Berry or Jimmy Haslam or whoever and be a head coach, right? And when it came to that locker room, it's good when it's working, but when it doesn't, it falls apart as quickly as it comes together. It's a house built on sand. And the Browns need, in a head coach, somebody that they're going to be able to put in front of the team. And not only are they going to believe in them as a head coach, but they're going to believe in them for the structure of this team. And, with Jim Schwartz, it's really tough because Jim Schwartz has led one of, if not the best defense in the NFL 2 years in a row. And Kevin Stefanski has led, if not for sure, one of the worst offenses in the NFL the last 2 years. So I have a head coach who is my offensive guy, leading the 2 worst years of offensive football I think I've ever seen in my life. And on the flip side, I'm watching some of the best defensive football I've ever seen in my life. And I want people to understand because, kind of along the lines of what you're saying, just because the Browns hire a young offensive mind doesn't mean it won't work. I mean, technically, when the Browns hired Kevin Stefanski, they hired a young offensive mind. Now, he didn't really have a whole lot of people knocking on his door begging him to be the next head coach of their team, but he was looked at as an up-and-comer. And it worked for a little bit. It doesn't mean it doesn't work. It just means you got the wrong guy. Like, the idea of going with a younger offensive mind and an innovative structure of how you want to run an offense in the modern NFL as your head coach, going with that guy and having a dominant defensive coordinator and a dominant defensive mind on the other side, it works. It works across the NFL, and it's worked in Cleveland. It has worked in Cleveland when Kevin Stefanski was running his offense. And what I mean is at some point, everything started falling apart with Deshaun Watson, with Ken Dorsey, and trying to change up the offense, and all of it, it just fell apart. It did. But when it was working, it worked. So to your point, Tristan, I don't think it's a bad thing. I really don't. I don't think the idea of going out and getting a guy that you believe in as a young offensive mind, I don't think that's a bad thing at all. But at the same time, I'm kind of the opinion, Tristan, I don't think it would be a bad idea on the flip side if the Browns wanted to look at a guy, let's see, Chris Shula would probably be the best example, but a defensive-minded young guy, Sean McVay, coaching tree, which has been great. If they want to go with a guy like that and trust that he knows somebody that he thinks can, be that offensive coordinator, I wouldn't be too against it. And sorry for being long-winded here, but Tristan, there's a reason why this podcast works. There's a reason why we can talk, and it's because a lot of times we're thinking the same way. And to me, allow me just a second, Grant Udinski is, I think he's somebody that, regardless of what happens in the Browns situation here, I think in 3 to 4 years we're going to be talking about him as a really good young head coach. And the reason I say that is not necessarily what he's done, it's where he's been, where he's come from. When you look at his story, Tristan, the best winners in life, in anything, sports, entertainment, politics, whatever you want to name, the best winners weren't given shit. They go out there, they sacrifice, they suffer, and they earn it. Grant Udinski, if you read into his story, was sleeping in his car. He was out here living the life. Like, he didn't just want to be a head coach and that's real cute, or want to be a coach or whatever. He was doing it, and he was doing everything he had to do it. That's a Cleveland guy. That's a guy that I want leading that fucking locker room. That's a Dan Campbell type. And he might not look like it. He might not sound like it. But let me tell you something. If that guy in his own personal life is willing to go sleep in his car to get a chance, that's the guy I want to give the opportunity to. That's the guy that I believe in. And I understand. It is a heck of a risk to give a 30-year-old the head coaching job of an NFL team. Tristan, I'm 23. I'm thinking 7 years down the line, would I be ready to be head coach? Forget of college team, of an NFL team? I mean, probably not.
Yeah.
But
sorry. Keep going.
No, I was just going to say, but you know what the problem is? The problem is a lot of people look at a number and they look at, oh, you're 30 years old. Tristan, I don't say this as somebody to say, oh, I've been through a lot. In my 23 years of life, I've probably been through more than some 50-year-olds. And I'll put it up against anybody. Like, I've been through some crazy shit. And I don't say that as a brag. I say that as some people have to mature quicker. Some people have to learn quicker. Some people have to do life differently. You know, and I'm not saying this as like some motivational thing, but Tristan, we got to be realistic about where this franchise and where this team is at. People look at the Browns and they look at it like you're getting sent to hell if you're going to be the coach of that team. You know, for everything we say negative about Kevin Stefanski, he's been the most successful coach the Browns have had in a long, long time. And here we are, you know, a year or two later after him and Andrew Berry getting extended, and he's fired. You know, so you got to understand what you are. You know, G. Bush has loved G. Bush. He'll never see this probably, but shout out to G. Bush. Was talking about it like in the relationship market. He's like, you know, at a certain point, I just realized, like, you know, he said, I'm not going to get on the dating apps. I don't have time for that. I don't want to do all that. Right? People look at the Browns like that. That's how they look at the Browns. I don't want to do that. I don't have time for that. Why would I do that? Nothing good's coming out of that. But you know what we need? We need somebody who says, you know what? I don't care how. If it means I sleep in my car to achieve this dream, if it means I bounce around and I'm an assistant and I'm this and I'm that, and I got to learn and soak up information along the way, that's the guy I want. So I don't know. It's tough. You know, there's the X's and O's side of it, right? He's the offensive coordinator of the Jacksonville Jaguars. He's been there for a year and he doesn't call plays. That's concerning. You know, there's a lot of risks, but Tristan, for me, when I look at this list of candidates that the Browns have, I'm saying, you know what? I don't think that there is a for sure thing on this list. So I'm gonna go with my gut. I'm gonna go with who I think could be the next guy. And you know, if you're gonna do that, swing hard. If you're gonna swing for the fences, swing hard. So yeah. It's tough.
Well, and something else I kind of want to add in terms of the young aspect of it versus like a older established coach. You know, I think it makes sense to go for a young guy because, like we said, this is not an easy job that you're coming in and taking over. Like, the defensive side of the ball, assuming that you're keeping Jim Schwartz and everything's staying the same there, which I believe it will. Like, you have that locked down. You just have to focus on the offensive side of the ball, which helps. But the offensive side of the ball is an absolute train wreck. Make no mistake about that. Like, I think that we need somebody who's young and who has that energy, has that work ethic. Doesn't have like incredible like doesn't have so much experience and time into it that you're gonna worry that they're gonna get burnt out. Like, that's part of the issue that I think Kevin Stefanski got into. Like, you could kind of just tell by looking at him at the end of the years, like, he just looked exhausted.
Bro, he looks like a president. Like, when they show Obama in 2008 and then they showed him in 2016, whenever his term came to an end, his second term came to an end, looked like a whole new person.
Yeah. And it's just like that for me is kind of like, if we're going to have somebody come in and really, really change, especially the offensive side of the ball, it's got to be somebody who is incredibly determined, incredibly smart, and is capable of elevating players. For me, yeah, it's going to be an incredibly difficult job. And I at the same time, I think that there's a guy out there that can do it. I think that there's potentially a couple, but I think there's one that I feel really good about. So, for me, Derek, I think that's the home run hire at this point. I think that's what you go out and do. And you know what, we might sit here in a year from now and we might say everything that we thought was great, but those were stupid reasons to hire somebody, or, you know, it fell on its face and it was miserable, whatever, right? But I think if you're not swinging for the fences, if you're not trying to go out and find the guy, right, you're not showing championship aspiration. You're not. And that's the biggest thing for me. Like, people will rip on the Deshaun Watson deal in the Deshaun Watson trade. And if it's off the football, 100% valid. Absolutely valid. We've established that on this podcast many times. In terms of a purely football trade, there's a lot of revisionist history.
Oh, yeah.
That was a move. The Cleveland Browns were going out and they were being aggressive in getting their franchise guy, and they were going to do whatever it took to get that done. And that's that. Whatever you want to say about how that panned out, that was championship aspiration. If they hire Grant Udinski, for me, Derek, it shows championship aspiration, and that's what I want to see in Cleveland.
Yeah, my PlayStation controller just fell. Which, by the way, not that anybody cares, but I just want you to know the sacrifice we do for this podcast in getting ready for me to record. I have to pull my desk up, and cord was stuck, and my PlayStation fell off, and it broke. So, I mean, I think it still works. I haven't turned it on. But like the little casing around it, like the very top chips, so it's a little, defective now, but oh well. Anyway, with this whole Browns coaching search thing, I think a lot of people, because here's the thing, we've been sitting here talking about Grant Udinski. There's so many names that they have gone through, right? And we're about an hour now. I don't want to go through every name, but like, it could not be, an offensive guy. They could go defense, and we're going to have to sit here and my question, Tristan, would be immediately, if they go a defensive head coach, I'm not going to be mad. My first thing is going to be, okay, offensive coordinator, what are we doing? Who are we getting? Like, that is the focus. If you don't get an offensive mind at head coach, you have got to go get an offensive dude at offensive coordinator. And I mean dude as in like he's a guy, like he's for real, as an offensive coordinator. So with that being said, they're doing a lot of different interviews. I really don't know when this is going to be announced. John Harbaugh being hired by the New York Giants, I think, is obviously the first domino, and now you're going to start to see more. Where the Browns line on that list, I don't know. I really don't. But hopefully it'll be soon. But it's just been one crazy thing after the other. And kind of transitioning here, if you're good too. We had some crazy news, Tristan. The guy that me and you both, ironically, I think for the first time ever, mutually agreed is our quarterback if we're going to go get one, decided to go back to school. Dante Moore returning to the University of Oregon after Dylan Raiola transfers to Oregon. Absolute pure comedy. But Tristan, this is the NIL world of football. This is the NIL world where a guy like a Dante Moore at 20 years old, I don't know how much he's getting to go back, but millions of dollars to go back, improve, get better, and be at the same spot for next year's draft. And for his sake, hopefully it's not the Jets. So I guess, Tristan, kind of overall thoughts. And then number two, I feel like this is an obvious answer. I don't feel like this is more rhetorical than a real question here. But I guess, how funny do you think it is that Dante Moore was sitting there going, Oregon, East Rutherford, or wherever they're at, the Jets. Like, oh my gosh, it cracks me up because I can sit there and just imagine like his mom or his dad being like, you don't want to go to the Jets. Like, you don't.
Well, dude, the Jets are going to sit there and say, hey, we'll be asked next year. We're going for you again. Like,
yeah.
like, But in all seriousness, though, I think it was less so a decision of would I be the number 2 overall pick, right? Like I think you and I are both confident that he would have been the number 2 overall pick, even after his performance against Indiana. That Indiana defense is at another level. That Indiana team is at another level. Like, incredible job by Kurt Signetti. While we have the time to plug that, let's plug that. Yeah, for me, I find it shocking, yes, but at the same time, in terms of his development, right? Like, I was kind of... No, I'm not going to say that. I think that in terms of his development as a quarterback, it probably was the better decision, because the reality of the NFL is this. Nowadays with quarterbacks, you get like 2, maybe 3 years to prove yourself. If you're not good enough after 3 years, pretty much you're done. I like that.
Isn't that sick?
That is sick. I like that. But you get like 2 or 3 years max as a quarterback. If you don't prove yourself, you're done. Like, Sam Darnold was so lucky that he got the opportunity that he did. Because once when the NFL writes you off, man, you're done. You're done. You're a backup for a while, and you can make solid money doing that. But in terms of being a starter at the NFL, you're done. So I think that Dante Moore, I think he did make the right decision in terms of his development. There are aspects to his game that he can improve. And I think that this next year, he's going to be the Heisman frontrunner. I think that he's going to be the leading candidate for the first overall pick. I would not rule out Dante Moore being the number 1 overall pick next year. And honestly, I'd even say it's probably the most likely outcome right now. But I don't think this was just about money. I don't. Clearly, it was not. This is about long-term. Long-term, what are we getting? And long-term with Dante Moore, if he left right now and he went to that Jets team that we mentioned it before because they sold off Sauce and they sold off Quinnen Williams, and Breece Hall's a free agent. There's a lot of change that's happening in New York right now. It's not really a stable spot. Him as a prospect is not really fully developed. So there's just a lot of risk. And knowing that you only have 3 years to prove yourself, yeah, that's kind of scary. It's kind of scary. And I could see why he felt like, you know what, let me take another year, get better. I'll make a little good amount of cash. And then I'll go. And then I'll go in the draft. I can't fault him for that. And I almost think that it's the better option for him. It might end up being too big of a risk, and he might end up having some type of injury and he misses out on tens of millions of dollars. But at the same time, Derek, if he goes now and he messes it up, he'll miss out on hundreds of millions of dollars. So yeah. I think that's the way that Dante Moore's looking at that, and I think it's the right call. I do.
Yeah. I 100% agree. I think, if I were to try to put myself in his shoes, I'd be looking at it and I'd be saying, man, where I'm at right now, like where Dante Moore is at right now, is not a bad spot. It is a 12-team playoff. 12 teams. You can lose games and still have a chance, right? And when I look at that Oregon team, right, because everybody's, Kurt Signetti, I just showed you the shirt, is the hot name, and Indiana's on fire right now. I know they got a really good transfer quarterback coming in there next year, which that's how they got this team to begin with, is with the portal. But the likelihood, watch, this will get clipped, the likelihood of Indiana making it to the national championship 2 years in a row is very unlikely. Could that program become consistently good long term? Yeah, of course they could. But to take them to a championship this year is ridiculous. To take them to a championship 2 years in a row would be insane. So if you're Dante Moore and you're looking at the standpoint of the Big Ten right now, Indiana is the champion. They have a ton of questions. Ohio State is losing a lot of players, right? Ohio State is losing a lot of players. They'll be good. How good will they be? Oregon having Dante Moore coming back with, himself. They got DeCorian Moore there. The wide receiver was really, really good. I know they're going to lose Sadiq to the draft probably this year. He's going to be a high draft pick. But that team has a lot of talent. And I'm a big Dan Lanning guy. I think Oregon next year, college football wise, I think Oregon's a team that I look at and I say, I think they could do it next year. They could do it this year. Hell, if they would have beat Indiana, I think they could beat Miami. Absolutely. But nobody's beaten Indiana. It's just not happening. But as far as the NFL draft is concerned, to me, Tristan, the Jets are not. I really don't know. We have these conversations. Will the Browns ever win a Super Bowl in your lifetime? And it's like, well, I hope so. Maybe one day. The Jets are the one team that I'm like, man, I've been confident that the Jets could be a good team, and they're terrible. I just don't know. I don't know with that team. And if I'm Dante Moore, I think it's good for both sides. To be honest with you, Tristan, I'm sitting here talking, and I'm just thinking about it. If you're the Jets, why the hell are you trying to take a quarterback in this situation? Like, I know you desperately need one, and you can't be good without a quarterback. I understand that. But, man, if I'm the Jets, I'd rather pay Malik Willis, see if he can do anything, give him a 2-3 year contract, and fill in the holes. So, yeah, I think Dante Moore coming back is a great decision. I think that Oregon team is going to be really good next year. I think they're national championship contender absolutely next year. And then as far as how this affects the rest of the draft, which is kind of the whole reason I brought it up, I think this does lead some questions, Tristan. I think, now the Jets not taking a quarterback at 2, unless Ty Simpson magically jumps back into relevance after that blowout loss to Indiana. I don't know what they do. I don't. They could trade back, but it'd kind of be like a Browns situation last year. Who are you going to trade up for? Unless it's like a Reuben Bain or somebody like that. I don't know, but I guess, very simple question. Does Dante Moore coming back to school ruin anything for the Browns drafting at 6 in your eyes?
No, I don't. If the Browns, I think whether Dante Moore was in this draft or not, the Browns, if they were going to take a quarterback, I think they were going to take one with their second first-round pick at earliest, right?
Well, I want to clarify real fast. I want to clarify real fast. I don't mean Dante Moore coming back changes taking a quarterback. I'm saying for the Cleveland Browns at 6, now 5 picks ahead of them, 2 of them you had locked in as a quarterback. Now it's 1.
Yeah. So I think it changes a little bit, but at the same time, I'm confident that the Browns are going to have a player there that they are going to take, that is going to be or almost guaranteed going to be a game breaker. right? Or potentially a game breaker, somebody who looks like is going to be that at the next level. They could pick a guy at wide receiver. I'm not thinking that Carnell Tate's going to be there, but he could. He very well could. Jordan Tyson, I think there's a better chance he's there. I think he's good. There's a good chance that we take him there. We've talked about wide receivers. There's a guy who I absolutely love that we will get into whenever we talk about wide receivers this offseason. But there's always the Caleb Downs route. If Reuben Bain somehow magically is on the board when you're picking, I kind of feel like you have to take him. Just because, man, he is, oh my gosh. Like, I mean, he has damn near single-handedly gotten Miami to the championship.
Yeah.
He's been amazing in this college football playoff, and his draft stock just continues to rise. And if all else fails, you can always pick a tackle, your favorite tackle in the draft, or you can trade down. Because there's going to be somebody on the board that you don't need or you don't value as much. You're going to be able to trade down, and you're going to be able to pick up another second-round pick for moving down like 5 or so spots. Like, there's still going to be a player on the board that is going to be of significant value that you can either take and plug into your team and is going to make a difference, or it's significant value that you can trade out of and you can get good enough value back to make it worthwhile, like we did last year with Travis Hunter. Won't be that big of a trade. Won't be that significant of a trade package, but it's still an option. It's still on the board. So does it change what the Browns are doing? Maybe. Like, maybe there's a guy that they have slightly above another guy, and, now it makes it really hard that they're going to get that guy, right? But they're still going to get a great football player. Yeah. They are. And I'm still in a good spot when it comes to this draft and who's going to be available there.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. I do think it does change some things, and to me, the only thing it changes is risk. And what I mean by that is you could have a team in front of you. I'm not saying they're going to, because obviously they're taking Mendoza, but a team like the Raiders have made some stupid decisions over the years, picking very highly. So there's a chance, not everybody taken in the top 5 ahead of the Browns is going to be a Hall of Fame superstar. You know what I mean? So I kind of agree with you. I do think the Browns are going to be able to sit there at 6 and do something good. I guess my thing is I don't know if they're going to really have a choice, where I think if you add another quarterback in there, I think the possibility opens up where maybe you could have both of a Tyson or a Tate on the board. Maybe you could have the possibility of the Utah tackle and the Miami tackle on the board at the same time. Like, now to me, Tristan, I one of those two, if not both, are going to go before. I think one of the receivers or one of the tackles for sure is going ahead of the Browns. I think where me and you, I believe, are kind of solidified, we're both going receiver if we can. Depending on who's there, for sure.
Yeah, it depends on who's there for me.
Yeah.
Because I will say my opinions on some of the other wide receivers in the class have changed. Some of the tackles in this class have really impressed me and have jumped my board. The tackle from Miami in particular, I would be happy to take him at 6 overall. That is a guy that I'd be happy with. And if Carnell Tate's not, I'll spoil it right now. If Carnell Tate's not on the board, he probably would be my go-to pick. But again, we'll get into that a bit later. It's a little too early to get into when we're an hour into this podcast.
Yeah, the Super Bowl has not happened yet. We are not going to be balls to the wall on draft prospects yet. I want to get there, but not yet. We still got to get a head coach first. But I kind of think, Tristan, this is going to end up similar to what happened last year at 5. Obviously, the Browns traded back, but the Browns sat there at 5, and they said, you know what, we're just going to take the best damn player we think is there. Whether, I forget, Will Campbell went ahead of us, right, at 4?
Yeah, Will Campbell was at 4. 3 was Abdul Carter.
Yep, and then 2 was Travis, 1 was
Travis.
Cam.
Yeah.
So I kind of envision a similar situation happening this year, assuming everything stays the same. I think Mendoza's going to go 1. The Jets are going to do whatever the hell they're going to do. The Cardinals are going to do what they're going to do. The Giants, Saints, like...
I think if the Jets are smart, they're taking Bain. I think they're taking Bain. I think they should. I think they should.
I don't know.
That's who I would go for. So, for me, I think that they should take Ruben Bain, because that guy he is proven that he is capable of. Arguably the second most position in the game of football, and he has shown to be elite. I think that would be a great pick for them, but it's hard to say. But regardless, with us at 6, right? So Mendoza, he's for sure going to be off the board. You're going to have Bain, right? You got the 2 tackles that you like a lot. You got 2 wide receivers that are going to be on the board up there as well, right? So one of those guys is going to be there. Caleb Downs as well.
Reese.
Yes, those guys absolutely should be in consideration for that pick too. So just looking at that list, you're going to have a talent there. So that's why I'm comfortable with what we're picking at, and I think we're on the same page with that.
100%. And honestly, Tristan, the biggest reason why I'm not stressing all that much is because fate has a funny way of things happening. And, look no further than how Shedeur ended up in Cleveland. And if that works out, I mean, what a story. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying everything is Disney princess, Cinderella, whatever. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is some things are just meant to be. And I do think I think I'll tell you when we get off. It's one of these top guys, but I think he's destined to be a Brown, and I don't think anybody stands in the way. But
I know who you're talking about, but yeah,
I don't think you do. But what was I gonna say? Oh, the fact that what you said, the tackles in this class. I heard on UCSS they were talking about it. And there's a lot of different perspectives. And I believe it was Earl was talking about the offensive line, right? And why the Browns have to go get an offensive line. They have to go get an offensive line. And, if I had the luxury of, sitting there for that conversation, I would have turned to Earl and I would have said, I've seen Andrew Berry pick a offensive tackle in the top 10. I haven't seen him take a receiver. I haven't. And Tristan, these are the conversations we are going to spend all off season having, and I look forward to it. But in conclusion, I do think Dante Moore coming back does affect the Browns draft a little bit, but not necessarily how you would think. So with that being said, that's all I got until the Browns hire head coach. It's probably be the last time you see us. Who knows? I don't know, but going to be a big weekend. They got 2 big interviews. So
yeah, I'm excited, and not to mention, as these teams play their playoff games and that's decided, what's happening with names like Clint Kubiak, Joe Brady, guys that you would expect to be getting several more interviews than what you're seeing right now. So
Bob Saleh.
Yeah, right. Robert Saleh, absolutely. That's somebody who's going to be getting interviews. So things are just going to get more and more interesting, and I'm really excited.
Yep. And I think, just kind of in conclusion, I think this is the precursor to a really big off season. I don't know why. I don't know if it's just me. I just have this feeling we're going to see a lot of fireworks from a lot of different teams. So hopefully, Jimmy.
Yeah. I don't think that there's an established team in either conference right now. This offseason, there's going to be teams that are going to do whatever it takes to establish. 100%. So I agree with you. This is going to be an incredible offseason.
Yeah. So with that being said, I know we have been pretty inconsistent here and everything's been crazy, but we will get back on a regular and we will be shouting each other's heads off on what we're going to do and how we should fix the Browns. If you're still watching, I don't know why, but thank you. We greatly appreciate it. So with that being said, everybody, go Browns. Hopefully we'll figure it out.
Eventually. Go Browns.
Go Browns.